Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. What If copy system in Naruto is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if transmigrated in One Piece and becoming a marine? What if transmigrated as Minato Namikaze? What if transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 461, Kinshiki's Death. Shin's killing intent was undisguised, targeting all four of them. Even if they didn't want to be his enemies, they now had no choice but to fight. Lord Momoshiki, let me fight him first. Kinshiki spoke to Momoshiki, then charged towards Shin. Actually, Kinshiki was created by Momoshiki, using a god tree fruit. Thus, he was utterly loyal to Momoshiki. However, a counterexample must be mentioned here, Kaguya Otsutsuki, who was sealed by her own creations. Be careful, Momoshiki said to Kinshiki. Although Kinshiki was a tool he created, he was very useful. Momoshiki didn't want to see him die. Thank you for your concern, Lord Momoshiki. Kinshiki was deeply moved. To receive Lord Momoshiki's concern, he had no regrets even in death. Then Kinshiki, shrouded in purple lightning, charged towards Shin like a teleporting projectile. Decent speed. But too slow for me. Are you offering yourself up to be beaten? After Shin spoke, he punched Kinshiki in the face. Kinshiki flew back even faster than he had charged, crashing into the ground. The ground shook violently from the impact. A 100-meter deep crater appeared, with Kinshiki's body lying at the very bottom. I wanted to stretch my muscles a bit, but you're already down. I'm utterly disappointed. Shin knew Kinshiki's taijutsu was strong. He had thought Kinshiki could take at least one punch, but he was down after a single blow. He hadn't died, but he was severely injured by Shin's punch, his strength reduced by at least half. Even if he wasn't killed by Shin, he was useless now. Besides, his strength was weak to begin with. At least among the four Otsutsuki, Kinshiki was the weakest. Even Six Paths Madara could dominate Kinshiki. Momoshiki's face changed. He immediately went to rescue Kinshiki, jumping directly into the deep crater. Lord Momoshiki, my power is yours. After Momoshiki arrived, Kinshiki directly transformed into a chakra fruit. Seeing Kinshiki's choice, Momoshiki didn't hesitate, directly swallowing the chakra fruit formed by Kinshiki. Momoshiki also had Rinnegan, but his were on his hands, a pair of red Rinnegan. After eating the chakra fruit formed by Kinshiki, Momoshiki's Rinnegan turned yellow, and a third eye opened on his forehead, also a yellow Rinnegan. The chakra fruit was the god tree fruit. After eating the god tree fruit, Momoshiki underwent a huge change, his chakra increasing several-fold. However, the chakra fruit Momoshiki ate was far inferior to the one Kaguya Otsutsuki had eaten. Be careful. His strength has increased a lot. I'll deal with that rebellious son. Kaguya Otsutsuki hesitated for a moment, then said to Shin. Shin looked at Kaguya Otsutsuki with surprise. Is she talking to him? Speaking of which, Kaguya Otsutsuki was also his potential enemy. Shin wanted to kill the Ten-Tails, and Kaguya Otsutsuki would definitely not let Shin kill the Ten-Tails. Since she was ready to act, Shin didn't mind. He could use Kaguya Otsutsuki's hand to see how strong Hagoromo Otsutsuki truly was. Among everyone here, the only one whose strength was unknown was probably Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Shin knew the strength of the others. He didn't know if Hagoromo had any hidden trump cards. Shin suspected he did. As for Madara, Shin used a wood clone, sending it to deal with him. Wood clones were stronger than average clones, even shadow clones. They could use Kekkei Genkai, which other clones couldn't. And even if damaged, they wouldn't disappear immediately, unless their chakra was completely depleted. Are you looking down on me? Six Paths Madara's face was dark. Why would I look down on you? I think sending a wood clone is a sign of respect. Shin glanced at Madara and said calmly. Since Madara is disappointed with the wood clone, should I use a limbo clone to deal with him? I wonder what Madara's reaction would be if he saw me use limbo, border jail. But for now, let's deal with Momoshiki first. No longer paying attention to Madara fighting his wood clone, Shin focused his attention on the greatly strengthened Momoshiki. You probably haven't seen ninjutsu before, have you? Let me show you, Shin said to Momoshiki with amusement. You will die. Momoshiki said in a cold tone. I don't know if I'll die, but I know you're about to. Shin chuckled coldly. He didn't feel the slightest threat from Momoshiki. Six Paths, Super Great Ball Raisin Shuriken. Shin absorbed natural energy from the earth, then created two giant Raisin Shuriken and threw them at Momoshiki. Momoshiki had the ability to absorb ninjutsu attacks and reflect them back with greater power. It was somewhat similar to Shin's dojutsu, Takamagara, but weaker than Shin's. Because Momoshiki's dojutsu, Takamimubi no Kami, couldn't absorb all ninjutsu. For example, could it absorb Six Paths Senjutsu? This was natural energy, Six Paths Sage Art formed by Sage Art Chakra. Of course, he couldn't absorb it. Looking at the two flying Raisin Shuriken, Momoshiki felt a strong sense of mortal danger. Then Momoshiki unhesitatingly used Shinra Tensei with all his might. All three Rinnegan exerted their power, several times stronger than Nagato's Super Shinra Tensei. Any substance on the surface was completely destroyed. Kagaya Otsutsuki, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, and the others, who were fighting not far away, quickly moved away, avoiding the clash between Shin and Momoshiki. Not bad. You actually blocked it. It seems you can't be underestimated either, Shin said, looking at Momoshiki with some surprise. Momoshiki was drenched in cold sweat. Only Momoshiki himself knew how much it had cost him to block that attack. If he hadn't absorbed the chakra fruit formed by Kinshiki, he absolutely wouldn't have been able to block the terrifying blow. His chakra was depleted by a third. This was the most difficult battle he had ever faced. He never thought that in this world, there would be someone with strength that could rival his. Chapter 462, The Fall of the Otsutsuki Trio. A sword formed from a truth-seeking orb was held in Shin's hand, its sharp killing intent enveloping Momoshiki. Momoshiki, do you think you can survive this slash of mine? Shin asked Momoshiki calmly. Momoshiki didn't answer Shin's words. In normal times, he would likely have been angered by Shin. But right now, he had no room for anger. Shin's sharp killing intent made him treat the situation with gravity. The truth-seeking orb formed an absolute defense, enveloping him. Even so, Momoshiki couldn't feel completely at ease. Sword Art, Starfall Slash. This slash from Shin could cut through stars, tear the sky. The blade's light completely enveloped this world. The pitiful earth once again suffered. Remember, this land had been washed clean by Shin's golden will reincarnation explosion and silver will reincarnation explosion before. Now it was enduring it again. If this land had consciousness, it would surely curse out loud. Who the hell did I anger to suffer this fate? The defense formed by Momoshiki's truth-seeking orbs didn't even last a moment before being cut open by Shin's single slash, which also severed one of Momoshiki's arms. Originally, Momoshiki should have been cut in half. But at the most critical moment, Momoshiki successfully dodged a fatal blow. Even so, he lost an arm and the severed arm turned to nothingness. Momoshiki couldn't regenerate it. Or rather, he could regenerate it, but it would only be an ordinary arm. Momoshiki's original hand had a Rinnegan on it. Wasted a Rinnegan, Shin shook his head with slight regret. But it didn't matter. The Rinnegan was useless to him anyway. You dodged one slash. Can you dodge a second? And there's a third and fourth. Shin asked the relieved Momoshiki with a smile. Momoshiki, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, his face instantly turned gloomy. That level of attack, you can't use it casually, can you? Momoshiki didn't believe he could casually unleash the scary sword slash. If that were the case, there was no need to fight anymore, he could just surrender. You can guess if I can use it continuously, Shin said, looking at Momoshiki with a light smile. Though Starfall Slash couldn't be used with impunity, Shin felt using it dozens of times was still not a problem. If Momoshiki knew this, he would probably curse out loud. Using it dozens of times isn't called using it with impunity? Momoshiki, I have a question for you. Shin didn't continue his attack. He planned to chat with Momoshiki, to learn about the Otsutsuki clan. Who is the strongest in your Otsutsuki clan? Shin was very curious about the Otsutsuki clan. None of them were weak. He just didn't know how many people there were in the Otsutsuki clan. I am the strongest in the Otsutsuki clan. Momoshiki said to Shin with great pride. You? Shin's eyes were filled with deep suspicion. Sensing Shin's disdainful gaze, Momoshiki couldn't help but show a trace of anger. You don't believe me? Momoshiki stared at Shin angrily. That's right, I don't believe you. With your pathetic strength, you call yourself the strongest? Are you playing me for a fool? Inukai Takuro no Makoto. Momoshiki didn't waste any more words. He wanted to prove with his strength just how powerful he was. Inukai Takuro no Makoto was a monster with a dragon's head and a snake's body, formed from earth-release chakra. If Kushina were here, she would definitely complain about how ugly this monster was. It was hideous. All-killing ash bones. Shin also wanted to test the power of all-killing ash bones. A gray bone spike emitting an ominous aura shot towards Inukai Takuro no Makoto. With the speed Shin threw it, and the massive size of Inukai Takuro no Makoto, it would be strange if it could dodge. After being hit by all-killing ash bones, Inukai Takuro no Makoto began to disintegrate. Its body crumbled very quickly, turning to ash in the blink of an eye. Your strength is still not good enough, Shin said to Momoshiki with amusement. Shin admitted he was now provoking Momoshiki. You will pay the price for your actions. Momoshiki stopped his impotent rage and said to Shin with a grim face. I will pay the price for my actions? And what price is that? Can you make me pay it? When you say that, please consider your own strength. Shin chuckled lightly. Momoshiki's face turned completely black. Shin's light chuckle, to Momoshiki, was mockery, blatant mockery. Pheasant hunter. This time, Momoshiki used fire release chakra to transform into a firebird. It was actually the same technique as the previous Inukai Takuro no Makoto. Don't you have any other moves? Shin used all-killing ash bones again, completely obliterating this firebird. All-killing ash bones was domineering, it could even completely erase things formed from chakra. This was why Shin wanted to obtain all-killing ash bones. For all-killing ash bones, Shin had paid a divine replication card. Of course, besides this, Shin had also obtained other things. Overall, Shin felt this divine replication card was not spent in vain. Combined with the Dojutsu Tenmomai, it was practically 100% hit. In that case, let's finish you. Shin instantly appeared behind Momoshiki. Momoshiki didn't even notice how Shin appeared behind him, not even sensing Shin at all. It's over. Shin directly pierced through Momoshiki's heart, just like the backstab Black Setsa gave to Madara. Of course, that was in the original story. Now Black Setsu had died without succeeding, which was also tragic. Damn it. Momoshiki wanted to move, but he found his body couldn't move at all. Don't struggle. It's useless, Koto Amatsukami, Radiance. Shin knew it was impossible to destroy Momoshiki physically. Even if he completely destroyed his body, he could still live on through chakra. But if he destroyed his soul, Momoshiki would definitely be dead without a doubt. Turning his spirit and soul completely to ashes, the Otsutsuki trio was completely wiped out. Congratulations, Master. Mission complete. You have received one Divine Replication Card X1. Just after Shin killed Momoshiki, the system brought Shin good news. He had another divine replication card. Chapter 463, Kaguya Otsutsuki asks for help. After finishing off Otsutsuki Momoshiki, Shin's gaze shifted elsewhere. The battle between Kaguya Otsutsuki and Hagoromo was one-sided. Kaguya was completely suppressed, no match for her son. On the other side, Shin's wood clone had the upper hand against Madara. Madara was completely outmatched. He had thought Shin was looking down on him, but now he couldn't even handle a single wood clone. Kaguya Otsutsuki, are you even trying? Shin couldn't help but ask, watching Kaguya get sent flying by Susanu's slash. The Susanoo Hagoromo was using should be called the ultimate Susanoo. It was far larger than a perfect Susanoo, nearly 1,000 meters tall, comparable in size to the true several thousand hands, and it was incredibly powerful. Kaguya Otsutsuki's 80 Gods vacuum attack couldn't even break through its defense. This showed just how strong Hagoromo's Susanoo was. Of course I am. Kaguya Otsutsuki took a deep breath and replied to Shin with displeasure. Shin's question seemed to be looking down on her, which her prideful nature couldn't tolerate. Don't push yourself if you can't handle it. You have the image of the shinobi world's progenitor to uphold. Don't lose it all. Shin didn't intervene. He was enjoying the show. Kaguya Otsutsuki was no concern of his, her getting beaten up was her problem. Being beaten up by her son. Kaguya Otsutsuki was quite pitiful. Shin felt a flicker of sympathy for her. This was the second time she had been beaten by her sons. It was a truly tragic story. Last time, she was beaten by 2 sons. This time, by 1. Kaguya Otsutsuki should probably thank Shin. If not for Shin killing Hamura Otsutsuki, Kaguya might have faced a beating from both her sons again. Madara, can you still hold on? Should I make it a bit more difficult for you? Shin's gaze turned to Madara. Humph. Madara snorted angrily. He had no time to talk to Shin, he still had to face Shin's wood clone. Shin's wood clone was showing Madara what true wood release Sage Art was, stronger than Hashirama Senju's by more than a little. The massive true several thousand hands was pummeling Madara. Even truth-seeking orbs couldn't withstand such a powerful attack. Madara could ignore ninjutsu attacks, but not taijutsu and Sage Art attacks. Now, Madara was struggling to defend. Facing this world-destroying attack, Madara truly couldn't hold on. He estimated that even Hagoromo couldn't withstand it, unless Hagoromo had some hidden trump card. Shin sat not far away, watching their battle with great interest. I should have prepared some snacks and melon seeds. A watermelon would be even better. Oh, Kaguya Otsutsuki is about to lose. Shin looked at Kaguya Otsutsuki. Her chakra was almost depleted. The Yamatsu Hirasaka 80 Gods vacuum attack, and all-killing ash bones she used were all very chakra-consuming attacks. Coupled with Kaguya Otsutsuki's combat experience, Shin couldn't bear to watch. She kept spamming her ultimate moves, yet couldn't land a hit. After fighting for so long, she hadn't caused any damage to Hagoromo. No wonder she was sealed away back then. How could someone who kept missing their ultimate attacks possibly win? It would be strange if she could. Shin Uzumaki, help me. At this moment, Kaguya Otsutsuki couldn't care about face anymore. She asked Shin for help. Though she still had some pride, her request was very stiff. Alas! Shin completely ignored her request. After a while, Kaguya Otsutsuki truly couldn't hold on anymore. She shouted at Shin again, please help me. She had no psychological burden now, she had completely discarded it. Though she wasn't afraid of death, she was afraid of being sealed again. Kaguya Otsutsuki possessed an immortal body, she couldn't be killed. She was only afraid of being sealed again. However, Kaguya Otsutsuki's so-called immortal body wasn't truly immortal. If her soul could be destroyed, she would die. Do you expect me to help you for free? Shin looked at Kaguya Otsutsuki. Then what kind of payment do you want? Kaguya Otsutsuki quickly came to Shin's side and asked him anxiously. The situation was very urgent for her. When had her rebellious son Hagoromo become so strong? She was no match for him. It wasn't that her power was insufficient. Kaguya Otsutsuki's power was already not weak, but her combat experience was severely lacking. Shin hadn't even stated his conditions yet when he saw Hagoromo's attack heading towards them. Hagoromo didn't care that Shin was here. In fact, it was because Shin was here that Hagoromo attacked this way. To Hagoromo, killing Shin would be the best outcome. Unfortunately, Hagoromo simply couldn't do it. Shin chuckled coldly. As Hagoromo's Susanoo fist came over, Shin slashed out with his sword. A sword aura, 1,000 meters long, slashed at the Susanoo, which was as tall as the true several thousand hands, directly tearing it apart. Kaguya Otsutsuki's face was filled with question marks. How did he do that? The katana in Shin's hand was made from a truth-seeking orb. Kaguya Otsutsuki could see that at a glance, she could create one too. But the same weapon, used by different people, would produce different power. If Kaguya Otsutsuki held a sword, she probably couldn't even slash out a sword aura. One had to train swordsmanship to a certain level to be able to slash out a sword aura, and Kaguya Otsutsuki didn't know swordsmanship at all. Agree to 3 of my conditions, and I'll help you. How about it? Shin said to Kaguya Otsutsuki. Kaguya Otsutsuki came back to her senses. Hearing Shin's words, she frowned. Agree to 3 of your conditions? Kaguya Otsutsuki looked at Shin, hesitating. What if he proposes some outrageous conditions? Chapter 464, Facing the Sage of Six Paths. Shin waited for Kaguya to agree to his conditions. He believed Kaguya knew how to choose. If Shin didn't help her, Kaguya would be sealed away in the end. In a fight, Kaguya was far from being a match for Hagoromo. All right. I agree. But you have to help me kill this rebellious son. After a moment of hesitation, Kaguya finally made up her mind, agreeing to Shin's conditions and asking for his help. All right, no problem. It's just a matter of lifting a finger anyway, Shin said with an air of indifference. Kaguya's mouth twitched. She had just fought Hagoromo and deeply understood how strong this rebellious son was now. Though she didn't want to admit it, he had indeed surpassed her. Thinking that her rebellious son's strength had surpassed hers, Kaguya's heart felt uneasy. Don't forget the 3 conditions you promised me. When I state my conditions, if you go back on your word, you'll be worse off than the Otsutsuki trio. As Shin spoke, he pointed at Otsutsuki Momoshiki's corpse. This was also a threat to Kaguya. Anyway, Shin didn't believe Kaguya would be so honest, so a little threat was necessary to prevent her from playing tricks. I won't go back on my word. Do you think I'm a despicable woman? Kaguya glared at Shin. Don't glare at me. Do you want a beating? Seeing Kaguya glaring at him, Shin clenched his fist and threatened her, instantly intimidating her. Hagoromo, it's time for us to settle our scores. Shin's tone was calm, but his body exuded a terrifying killing intent. Hagoromo was silent. Shin Uzumaki was more frightening than he had imagined. Even the enemies his mother feared had died at Shin Uzumaki's hands. I don't think there's any hatred between us. How about we shake hands and make peace? Hagoromo backed down. You want to shake hands and make peace? Shin found it rather amusing. It seemed Hagoromo was quite afraid. But this made Shin feel bored. I don't think we can. You old geezer are also a threat. It's better to get rid of you. Shin wasn't afraid of Hagoromo, but his women might not be his opponent. What if this old geezer attacked Kushina and the others? So, this threat had to be eliminated. Besides, Shin had an agreement with Kaguya. After all, the conditions Kaguya promised were still useful. Shin still had use for Kaguya. It seems there's really no room for negotiation. Hagoromo's face was extremely grim. From the killing intent Shin exuded, Shin Uzumaki had no intention of letting him go. Of course, Hagoromo was also prepared for a fight. Instantly, several clones rushed towards Shin. Hagoromo had used a technique similar to the shadow clone technique, and these clones were not weak. Shinra Tensei. Shin looked at the several clones rushing over and used the repulsive force of his 9-tomo Rinnetensegen to send them all flying. Even after taking a heavy blow, they didn't disappear. It seemed they weren't simple shadow clones, but something similar to wood clones. 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. Hagoromo's real body used the same move he had used to seal Kagaya back then, 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. With the power of Yang in his left hand and the power of Yin in his right, Hagoromo quickly approached Shin and slapped towards him. Anyone touched by the power of Yin and Yang would have all their power sealed, and then their own body would become a gravitational source, attracting countless rocks to seal them inside. Finally, they would fly into space and slowly attract countless meteors, becoming a planet the size of the moon. The clone attack on Shin was just to attract Shin's attention. Hagoromo's real purpose was a one-hit kill. The attack is unexpectedly large. Shin calmly used Namikaze, taking the charging Hagoromo into the space within Namikaze. How do you know Mother's technique? Hagoromo looked at Shin in shock. He didn't even know this technique. No need to care so much. By the way, what would happen if I used 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei on you? Shin looked at Hagoromo with a smile. Shin could also use the strongest sealing jutsu, 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. As long as one possessed both Yin and Yang powers, using it wasn't particularly difficult. Shin had mastered the power of 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei long ago. This is the supergravity dimension. How do you like it here? Shin pressed his hand down, and immense gravity pressed down on Hagoromo's body, making him feel as if he were carrying a mountain. Shin himself was not affected at all. He didn't understand why Kagaya in the original story would be restricted by her own space. If you can't hold on, just say so. Though even if you say so, I won't let you go. Shin's words were equivalent to nonsense, but it also showed Shin's attitude. He absolutely would not let Hagoromo go. You really choose to help Mother? She is not to be trusted. Hagoromo, holding his 6 paths Shakujo, straightened his back with great effort and asked Shin, staring at him. As if you can be trusted. Compared to Hagoromo, Shin felt Kagaya was a much smaller threat. Though that woman's strength wasn't weak, her brain was stupid. Unlike Hagoromo, who was old and cunning. If you back down, I can tell you all the secrets of the Otsutsuki clan. Hagoromo continued to negotiate with Shin with a grim face. The secrets of the Otsutsuki clan? I don't think your understanding of the Otsutsuki clan can surpass Kagaya's. Shin wasn't interested in the secrets Hagoromo mentioned. Perhaps it was just something Hagoromo made up to survive. Even if the Otsutsuki clan really had some important secrets, Shin could just ask Kagaya. Chapter 465, Eliminating Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Hagoromo, what exactly was your purpose, hiding in the shinobi world for so many years? Shin asked Hagoromo. If I told you, would you spare me? Hagoromo asked calmly. I'd love to lie to you, but I'll be honest, no. Shin shook his head. It was simple enough for him to discover Hagoromo's plans. He could just read his memories. Since that's the case, why should I tell you? Hagoromo prepared to fight to the death. Since there was no way out, he might as well take Shin down with him. Well said. Since you won't talk, I'll just have to look through your memories myself. Shin smiled calmly. Then let's fight to the bitter end. The truth-seeking orbs behind Hagoromo combined to form the sword of Nunaboko, and he charged towards Shin. The fish will surely die, but the net won't break, Shin said calmly. This was Shin's domain. Did Hagoromo really think he could take Shin down with him? Even if Hagoromo's strength doubled, it would be impossible. 80 God's vacuum attack. Shin's fists blurred, unleashing countless massive punches, each one like a nuclear bomb. Boom! The earth roared, and the supergravity dimension was ravaged by Shin's full-power 80 God's vacuum attack. Yes, Shin showed no mercy even when destroying his own space. Hagoromo was the most pitiful. He had just declared a fight to the death, but now, he was being pulverized by Shin's fists. Even a body as hard as steel couldn't withstand the 80 God's vacuum attack's blows. The sword of Nunaboko was shattered by the punches. A single 80 God's vacuum attack completely shattered all of Hagoromo's confidence. Your strength isn't even enough to make me use my full power. Shin shook his head in disappointment. Where did you come from? Hagoromo lay on the ground, looking up at Shin with intense hatred. The shinobi world couldn't have produced such a monster, even the Otsutsuki clan. His strength was on a whole other level. Where did I come from? Shin paused for a moment, then smiled meaningfully. I came from a place you don't know. Strictly speaking, Shin wasn't from this world. He was a transmigrator, brought to this world by the system. So you really aren't from the shinobi world. Hagoromo understood. How did he achieve this strength? Logically, only with the power of the God Tree could one reach this level. All members of the Otsutsuki clan basically relied on the God Tree to enhance their strength. Shin, however, relied on the system's replication cards. Without the system, he wouldn't have reached his current level of power. Since I've let you in on a secret, you can satisfy my curiosity in return. As Shin spoke, he reached out to grab Hagoromo, preparing to read his memories. But Hagoromo naturally wouldn't allow it, holding his 6 paths Shikujo and preparing to resist again. Still want to resist? Didn't you get beaten enough earlier? Gentle fist art, 8 trigrams 361 palms. Shin assumed the gentle fist stance. A bagua pattern enveloped Hagoromo, who was right in the center. Then, countless palm and fist strikes rained down on Hagoromo, hitting him from all sides. After being struck by Shin, the chakra wrapped around Shin's hands sealed Hagoromo's acupoints. Though Hagoromo was created by Kagaya, the gentle fist's pressure point strikes were still effective against him. Spitting out blood, Hagoromo collapsed to the ground. Already under the immense pressure of the supergravity dimension, and with his chakra now sealed by Shin, Hagoromo couldn't even stand. The gentle fist was effective against Hagoromo not because the technique was so powerful, but because of who was using it. Only Shin could seal Hagoromo's chakra. No power to resist now, right? Shin chuckled, placing his hand on Hagoromo's head, extracting his soul and reading his memories. After reading all of Hagoromo's memories, Shin understood his purpose. It was also for the God Tree. Other members of the Otsutsuki clan wanted the God Tree fruit, the chakra fruit. Hagoromo was the same, but Hagoromo didn't want a one-time deal. He wanted to treat the shinobi world as a nursery for leeks, harvesting them crop after crop. So that's how it is. Then your soul can turn to ash. Shin glanced at Hagoromo's extracted soul, then used his ocular power to completely destroy it. Hagoromo was dead, his body lying on the ground. This is my space, after all. Leaving a corpse here isn't good. Shin considered for a moment, then used Amaterasu to burn Hagoromo's body to ashes. The supergravity dimension is a bit severely damaged. Shin looked around. The destruction caused by the 80 Gods vacuum attack was quite extensive. But it didn't matter. Besides affecting the aesthetics, there were no other consequences. Using Yamatsu Hirasaka, he left the Amanamanaka space and appeared in the outside world. You're alone? Where is that rebellious son? As soon as Shin came out, Kagaya Otsutsuki impatiently asked him. He's already dead. You wouldn't be sad, would you? Shin looked at Kagaya Otsutsuki, wondering if she would be saddened by Hagoromo's death. Looking at Kagaya Otsutsuki, she didn't seem that heartless. Kagaya Otsutsuki was silent for a moment. Though this was the result she wanted, hearing the news, she couldn't help but feel a little emotional. When she created them, though she intended them to be tools, she had developed some feelings for them while raising them. This was why she was so angry when she was sealed by her 2 sons. By the way, what about Hamura? Kagaya Otsutsuki's brow furrowed. Now that Hagoromo was dead, what about her second son, Hamura? You're looking for Hamura Otsutsuki? Congratulations, you won't find him. He was killed by me long ago, and not even his bones remain. Shin told Kagaya Otsutsuki this news. Chapter 466, A Living Disaster. After killing Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the system surprisingly gave no reward. Shin was quite helpless. He had had the system for decades, but he still didn't know the rules for issuing system missions. Forget it, he was already invincible in the Naruto world. Even without missions, it didn't matter. Besides, there was still one mission he hadn't completed. Shin looked at Madara. There was still a mission to eliminate the Ten Tails. This mission was worth one divine replication card. However, Shin felt that this divine replication card might be even more difficult to obtain than the one for killing the Otsutsuki trio. By the way, do you know any way to kill the Ten Tails? Shin's gaze turned to Kaguya Otsutsuki. She should know, right? Even if she didn't, it didn't matter. Shin could experiment himself. Kill the Ten Tails? Kaguya Otsutsuki was stunned. Why kill the Ten Tails? Isn't the Ten Tails the God Tree? She had never heard of anyone wanting to kill the God Tree. Didn't everyone want to use the God Tree's power to enhance their strength? At least, all members of the Otsutsuki clan did. The God Tree wasn't a good thing. It grew by absorbing the energy of the entire world. The Otsutsuki Momoshiki Shin had destroyed who knows how many planets. His so-called destruction wasn't blowing up planets, but destroying the life on them. No matter how awesome Otsutsuki Momoshiki was, he was still easily killed by Shin. That's right. I want to kill the Ten Tails. Do you have a way? Shin ignored Kaguya Otsutsuki's shock. What was there to be shocked about? No. You absolutely cannot kill the Ten Tails. Kaguya Otsutsuki quickly said. Though she knew the Ten Tails was immortal, if Shin wanted to kill it, Kaguya felt it wasn't impossible. Because this so-called immortality was just her own perception. Otsutsuki Momoshiki had been killed by Shin Uzumaki, the Ten Tails could also be killed. Kaguya Otsutsuki couldn't allow Shin to kill the Ten Tails. She still wanted to reclaim her full power, and the Ten Tails was part of her power. Oh. I am determined to kill the Ten Tails. Do you want to be my enemy? Shin looked at Kaguya Otsutsuki with a half-smile. Kaguya Otsutsuki's unnaturally pale face turned grim. If Shin Uzumaki insisted on killing the Ten Tails, she had no way to stop him. If you really want to kill it, I can't stop you. But I don't know how to kill the Ten Tails. Kaguya Otsutsuki genuinely didn't know. Even if she did, she wouldn't tell Shin. Shin had anticipated he wouldn't get an answer from Kaguya Otsutsuki. Perhaps Kaguya Otsutsuki really didn't know. The God Tree is ultimately just a tree. If its life force is exhausted, then it will only end in death, right? Shin said thoughtfully. To deal with the God Tree, he first had to deal with Madara. He hadn't expected that among so many people, Madara would be the last one standing. Madara, you're the only one left. I'll give you a way out. Hand over the Ten Tails, and I can spare you. How about it? Shin shouted to Madara, who was fighting his wood clone, and then dismissed the clone. Madara's face was black. Hand over the Ten Tails? Wouldn't that be a death sentence? Even if Shin Uzumaki let him go, then what would be the point? He hadn't completed his plan yet. Madara didn't want to die, he wanted to realize world peace according to his ideas. He now knew Infinite Tsukuyomi was a conspiracy, but Madara still hadn't given up. However, whether he wanted to die or not wasn't up to him. The power was in Shin's hands. He was an old relic, what was the point of keeping him alive? Shin Uzumaki, don't think you can kill me. Madara's expression was calm, but inwardly, he wasn't so calm. No, I really think I can. Shin felt it wouldn't be difficult to kill Madara. The key was that killing the Ten Tails God Tree wasn't easy. As long as he extracted the Ten Tails, Madara would surely die. Unlike Hagoromo and the others, Madara's current strength was entirely dependent on the Ten Tails, so killing Madara was actually easier. Shin was just giving him some face. Limbo, border jail. Shin whispered softly. Around Shin, 10 grayish-white shadows emerged from the limbo dimension and rushed towards Madara. Madara had sage eyes, so he could naturally see the limbo clones. Seeing the limbo clones, Madara was stunned. Wasn't Limbo, Border Jail his dojutsu? His Rinnegan's exclusive dojutsu? Why does Shin Uzumaki have it? And how did Shin Uzumaki learn all these things? Some things can't be learned just by studying. For example, Limbo Border Jail was an exclusive dojutsu of the Rinnegan, just like Sasuke Uchihasa Minato Jikara. Feeling surprised? Shin's face wore a smile. He had long anticipated Madara would be surprised. Madara could at most use 4 Limbo clones, while Shin could split out 10, more than twice as many as Madara. 10 shadows all used Susanoo, and 10 invisible Susanoo rushed towards Madara. Normal people couldn't see them, but Madara could. Kagaya Otsutsuki could also see them. At this moment, Kagaya Otsutsuki didn't have the 9-tomo Rinne Sharingan on her forehead, but her Byakugan was not normal. It could also be considered a sage eye, so she could also see them. Limbo, Border Jail. Madara had no choice but to also split out Limbo clones to fight Shin's shadows. As for whether he could win, Madara had no confidence at all. Because Shin's Limbo clone Susanoo were ridiculously large, like the size of the true several thousand hands. The Sage of 6 Paths Hagoromo had also used this before. Madara had been surprised then, so he wasn't surprised now. However, not being surprised didn't mean he didn't know how powerful this Susanoo was. Chapter 467, Eliminating the Ten Tails. This was a one-sided slaughter. Madara's Limbo clones were instantly crushed, unable to even counterattack. The difference between them was like that of a child and a giant. There was no comparison. Madara lay on the ground, half his body gone, but he hadn't died yet. The missing half was regenerating at an incredible speed. The flesh was visibly knitting back together. In less than a minute, he would be fully restored. This was the power the Ten Tails granted him. Your recovery speed is impressive, but what's the point of struggling? Shin didn't understand why Madara continued to fight. Didn't he recognize the vast difference in their strength? Fine. Since Madara was being stubborn, Shin would just finish him off. All-killing ash bones. A grayish-black bone appeared in Shin's hand and shot towards Madara. Madara had been watching Shin closely. In terms of combat experience, Madara was definitely superior to Hagoromo and the others. He hadn't lived as long as the Sage of 6 Paths, but he had fought countless battles. He had lived through the chaotic Warring States period. If not for living in that turbulent era, Madara wouldn't have craved peace so desperately. Seeing the trajectory of the all-killing ash bones, Madara immediately dodged the attack, which exuded a palpable sense of crisis. It's useless. I won't let you escape, Shin said, shaking his head slightly. 10 Mamai. Madara, who had already dodged, found time reversing. He was back in his original spot, watching helplessly as the all-killing ash bones struck him. After being pierced by the all-killing ash bones, a decaying aura emanated from Madara's body. His body slowly turned to ash. In this process, Madara couldn't do anything to change his fate. Being hit by this was like being struck by a truth-seeking orb. Truth-seeking orbs weren't difficult for those with 6 Paths power to deal with, but all-killing ash bones was a different story. Farewell, Madara, Shin said calmly. There was no way Madara could survive now. He was doomed. To think that after all my scheming, even fighting Hashirama, it ends like this. A trace of sadness flickered in Madara's eyes. He wasn't afraid of death, but his dream remained unfulfilled. There is no such thing as eternal peace in this world. Even if infinite Tsukuyomi was a viable option, would that really be good? Shin said to the dying Madara. Infinite Tsukuyomi would trap everyone in a genjutsu. But if humans lived in a genjutsu forever, even if they didn't turn into white zetsu, they would perish. So, infinite Tsukuyomi, once activated, was a world-destroying technique. Even after hearing Shin's words, Madara was still unwilling. Filled with reluctance and regret, Madara Uchiha vanished from the world. Madara was dead, but the Ten Tails didn't die with him. Instead, it was freed. Kagaya looked at the Ten Tails, her heart stirring. In the end, she looked at Shin and sighed, not making a move. Shin's mouth curled into a smirk. It seemed Kagaya wasn't that stupid.
If Kagaya dared to snatch the ten tails, Shin would absolutely kill her without hesitation.
In other words, Kagaya had just walked on the edge of death and successfully landed safely. I wonder if all killing ash bones can kill you.
Shin's gaze was fixed on the ten tails.
Logically, with the power of all killing ash bones, it should be able to eliminate the ten tails.
It's useless.
All killing ash bones was also obtained through the god tree, Kagaya said to Shin. Shin didn't listen to Kagaya and experimented himself. Then he found that Kagaya really hadn't lied to him. It wasn't that he couldn't kill the ten tails, but after killing it, the ten tails could revive.
It can revive because of life force. In that case,
I'll just plunder all of it. Shin thought of another method. He quickly approached the ten tails, then jumped onto its head.
The ten tails didn't resist Shin.
Shin had dozens of ways to subdue the ten tails, but killing it wasn't so easy right now. Shin could only try, constantly experimenting to find a way to kill the ten tails.
Placing his hands on the ten tails' head, Shin's eyes glowed with a blue light. The ten tails' life force was being continuously stripped away by Shin. It's working.
Shin's eyes lit up, and he quickened his pace. It seemed the system's mission wasn't impossible to complete. The ten tails roared continuously, probably sensing its impending death. Unfortunately, roaring was useless, it couldn't break free from Shin's control. In a way, the ten tails was quite pitiful.
It couldn't even have a quick death.
Will the ten tails' death affect you?
Shin chatted with Kagaya to pass the time while extracting the ten tails' life force. It will. My power will never return to its peak. Kagaya's expression was grim.
She still wanted to reclaim the ten tails. But this domineering man insisted on killing it. And crucially, she couldn't stop him. She was afraid of Otsutsuki Momoshiki and the others, let alone Shin, who had killed them.
Oh. Shin just said oh and then gave no further indication.
Anyway, even if Kagaya talked until she was blue in the face, Shin wouldn't let the ten tails go.
The ten tails' immense life force took Shin about half an hour to completely extract.
The ten tails had now become a tall god tree, but it was a withered god tree. Kagaya looked at the dead tree, on the verge of tears.
Congratulations, Master. Mission complete. Reward, Divine Replication Card X1.
Just as Shin burned the withered god tree with a single fire, the system's voice came over. His mission was complete. This also meant that Ten Tails was truly dead.
Chapter 468, The Fourth Shinobi World War Ends.
The god tree, turned to ash, was blown away by a gentle breeze. Shin turned his gaze to Kagaya.
What do you want? Kagaya's face was expressionless, appearing very cold.
But she was hiding a hint of panic.
Kagaya was very worried that Shin Uzumaki would kill her too. I won't kill you for now.
You don't have to be so scared, Shin said to Kagaya.
I'm not scared. Shin chuckled lightly.
Kagaya's stubborn appearance was quite cute.
If you're not scared, why is your body trembling? Follow me.
Shin told Kagaya to follow him for now. He still had questions for her, but he didn't have time now. Bringing Kagaya, he found the girls. The women, who had been happy to see Shin, immediately looked unhappy upon seeing Kagaya behind him.
Explain. Kushina said to Shin fiercely. Ahem, what do you want me to explain? I don't think there's anything to explain. Shin coughed awkwardly.
He didn't want them to misunderstand his relationship with Kagaya.
Then who is she? Tsunade looked at Shin with a straight face. I've mentioned this woman to you before. She is Kagaya.
You killed the Sage of Six Paths, and now you're with his mother? Mikoto looked at Shin with a very special gaze.
Shin and you're actually, Konan looked away, disappointed, not even wanting to look at him.
I knew he had no shame.
Mei Terumi looked at Shin with disdain, leaving Shin speechless. Couldn't they let him explain? Shin-sama, I actually think I'm prettier than this woman. Karen came to Shin's side, tugging on his hand resentfully. Big sister, go for it. Beat this new vixen. I support you. Hanabi nudged Hinata, then clenched her small fists, cheering Hinata on. Hanabi, don't cause trouble.
Hinata scolded Hanabi, then pursed her lips and looked at Shin.
You guys really think I'm that kind of person? I'm so disappointed.
Shin said with a frustrated expression. If he'd actually done something, he wouldn't mind the accusations, but he and Kagaya had no relationship at all.
You know what kind of person you are, Kushina said bluntly. Fine, I won't explain. You wouldn't believe me anyway.
Shin waved his hand, deciding not to waste his breath on the women.
I think you just can't explain it, Shin. Makoto smiled lightly, making Shin suspect Makoto was deliberately fanning the flames. Let's go.
Let's go back to the land of whirlpools first.
I'll talk to you all after we get back.
Shin grabbed Makoto and gave her a slap on a certain place as a punishment.
Makoto's watery eyes looked at Shin. Her body was held tightly by Shin, unable to break free. Of course, Makoto didn't want to break free either.
Then Shin used Yamatsu Hirasaka, and they all returned to the land of whirlpools, including Kagaya, whom he wasn't letting escape.
Even with the 10 tails gone, who knew what trouble she might cause?
After returning, Shin explained the battle to the women and also explained why Kagaya was with him.
But they didn't believe his explanation. Kushina directly said Shin was lusting after beauty. Shin had to use force to silence them. Damn it! We need to unite and overthrow Shin. Kushina lay on the sofa and said to Makoto and the others.
As for why she was lying on the sofa, it was naturally because she had been spanked and couldn't sit down.
Kushina-nichan, you should just be obedient, Hinata kindly advised Kushina, then pointed at Shin behind her. Kushina turned her head and saw Shin looking at her with a half-smile.
Her face immediately changed.
Ahem, pretend I didn't say anything. Kushina didn't want a second round of punishment, so she obediently lay there, to avoid being made an example of again. The Fourth Shinobi World War ended. For the major villages, this war was somewhat inexplicable.
Because they weren't the main characters of this war at all.
They were even just bystanders.
They had no ability to interfere in the final battle. Nawaki had originally wanted to ask Shin some questions, but when he looked for Shin, Shin was already gone.
The White Zetsu army was also gone, destroyed when Shin obliterated the God Tree. The Edo Tensei army was also dealt with. Orochimaru had helped find Kabuto, and after Kabuto was dealt with, the Edo Tensei army vanished.
Half a month later, Nawaki came to the land of whirlpools to ask Shin about Naruto Uzumaki.
He was also asking on behalf of Jiraiya. Naruto is dead.
He was controlled by Hagoromo, so I killed him, Shin said to Nawaki.
All right.
Though Nawaki felt Naruto was a good kid, since he was dead, there was nothing to be done.
But who was Hagoromo?
This war had been fought in a daze, completely unaware of what was going on.
Knowing wouldn't help. It's over. Don't ask so many questions. Shin directly sent Nawaki away.
He didn't have time to explain a bunch of things to Nawaki. Explaining the Otsutsuki clan was annoying, it couldn't be explained in 1 or 2 sentences.
With this time, wouldn't it be better to sunbathe and drink tea? After sending Nawaki away, Shin lay down on the lounge chair in the courtyard.
A leisurely life was a happy one, especially when being served. Beside Shin stood a woman, fanning him like a maid. And this woman was Kagaya. Yes, Kagaya had become Shin's maid. This was one of Shin's conditions, to keep her here as a maid. Kagaya herself was reluctant, but under Shin's pressure, she had no choice but to obediently be a maid.
For this, she was even viewed with hostility by Karen.
Karen felt Kagaya had stolen her job, so she was very hostile towards her.
Chapter 469, Leaving the Naruto World. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye.
During this time, Shin eliminated another Otsutsuki clan member. Ishiki Otsutsuki, the main antagonist of Boruto, possessed the second 10 tails and had been hiding in the shinobi world for a long time.
Shin learned of his whereabouts from Kagaya Otsutsuki, then found and eliminated him.
No other reason than this, the guy was an ambitious villain. Shin didn't want him disturbing his peaceful life, so he had to take him out first.
Ding! Congratulations, Master, on receiving your annual reward, 1 common replication card.
Shin was startled by the system's sudden pop-up and sat up.
System, you're awake?
That was quick.
After the Fourth Shinobi World War ended, the system had informed Shin it was going into a dormant upgrade state.
Shin had thought the upgrade might take several years, he hadn't expected it to be so fast.
What new abilities did you get this time? Shin asked the system.
System space and the ability to traverse worlds, the system replied.
System space and traversing worlds? Does that mean I can travel to other worlds?
Shin's eyes began to sparkle. He didn't care about the system space, but traversing worlds was something he couldn't ignore.
Yes, Master. You can travel to other worlds. The system then explained the details.
Shin also learned about the system space. It was less a space and more a small world. It was habitable, even larger than the Shinobi world, with lush greenery and blooming flowers.
The only thing it lacked was life.
But compared to that, Shin was more focused on traversing worlds.
Traversing worlds was free, Shin didn't have to pay anything. However, the system needed to accumulate enough energy for Shin to travel. So many worlds. I want to go see them.
The idea of traveling to other worlds sparked in Shin's mind.
System, can I bring others with me? Shin asked the system. If he was going to travel, he naturally had to take the women with him. If he couldn't, he'd rather not go at all.
Of course.
As long as they enter the system space. Looks like even though you don't have much intelligence, system, you're quite thoughtful. Shin smiled, then went to inform Kushina and the others. Leave this world?
Kushina, Makoto, Tsunade, Konin, Mei, Hinata, and Hanabi all stared at Shin with wide eyes. The only one not shocked was Kaguya Otsutsuki. She didn't belong to the Shinobi world anyway, so traveling to other worlds didn't surprise her at all.
Yes. Once we leave, it will be difficult to come back. What do you all think? Shin nodded, asking for their opinions.
They could return to the Naruto world, but it would require the system to accumulate enough energy for the return trip. And this time wasn't a year or two, it might take 10 or even 80 years to accumulate enough energy.
Do you even need to ask? Where you go, I go. You absolutely cannot leave me behind. I want to be with you forever. Kushina pounced on Shin, hugging his neck tightly. Me too. Makoto didn't say much, just looked at Shin gently. Wherever Shin chose to go, she would follow.
You brat, don't even think of leaving me behind, or I'll smash your head in, Tsunade threatened Shin. I'll naturally follow Shin-sama, Karen said, hugging Shin's arm, determined not to let go for the entire day.
She absolutely could not be left behind. Konin grabbed Shin's other hand. She, of course, couldn't leave Shin.
I'd love to see the sights of other worlds, Mei said with a light chuckle.
I want to go with Shin and I too,
Hinata looked at Shin with determination.
I'll go with my sister. Hanabi, hearing Hinata's words, quickly said.
And she also wanted to go with Shin.
That left Kaguya Otsutsuki.
But Kaguya had no other choice, she could only follow Shin.
Alright, then pack up.
And Hinata, you and your sister should go say goodbye to your father.
If we leave this time, I don't know if we'll ever come back. Shin said to the two Hyuga sisters. This time, Hanabi didn't say she wouldn't go.
Though she didn't want to see Hayashi Hyuga, he was still her father.
Shin took Hinata and Hanabi to Kirigakure to see Hayashi Hyuga and talk with him.
Knowing his two daughters were leaving with Shin to a faraway place, Hayashi Hyuga hesitated for a long time but ultimately didn't object.
Objecting was useless. His two daughters no longer listened to him. In the end, Hayashi Hyuga just asked Shin to take good care of them.
Shin naturally agreed.
How could he not take good care of them?
After returning to the land of whirlpools, Shin took Tsunade to see Nawaki. Learning his sister was leaving, Nawaki didn't know whether to be sad or happy. Sad because he would rarely see his sister in the future.
Happy because he would no longer be forced to do things.
Shin, you must take good care of my sister, Nawaki said to Shin.
Of course I will. You should hurry up and get married and carry on the family line.
Shin patted Nawaki's shoulder. Nawaki was probably Shin's only friend in the Naruto world. After talking for a long time, Shin took Tsunade and bid farewell to Nawaki, then returned to the land of whirlpools. Then Shin brought the women into the system space.
Is this another world? It's so beautiful. Makoto looked around at the environment in surprise. Yes, it's very beautiful. Is this heaven? Kushina muttered to herself. This can be considered another world. Shin nodded.
Though it was the system space, it was as vast as the shinobi world, if not larger. Shin had already built a house here. With wood release, building a house was too easy. If Shin wanted, he could become the strongest architect in minutes.
Actually, this place is more like a transfer station.
We haven't reached the real new world yet, Shin finally explained to the women. Then Kushina, Tsunade, Konen, Makoto, and Mei went to explore the system space, while Shin prepared to truly traverse worlds.
Traversing worlds. He felt a little excited. He would soon arrive in another world. System, take me to another world.
Shin communicated with the system in his mind. Then a spatial gate, just like the one Shin used for Yamatsu Hirasaka, appeared. Shin stepped into it without hesitation. Just like using Yamatsu Hirasaka, he felt nothing, and then he had arrived in another world. Where is this place?
I hope I don't run into any danger.
Shin warily surveyed his surroundings. Being new to this place, Shin's vigilance was at its peak. After all, he wasn't familiar with this world yet.
Chapter 470, Amazon Lily.
New to this world, Shin surveyed his surroundings.
He was currently in a forest. He used Kagura's mind's eye to sense his surroundings, but then he remembered that Kagura's mind's eye could only sense chakra. How could there be chakra in this new world? It seems Kagura's mind's eye is useless here.
Shin was slightly frustrated, but it wasn't as if he had no other options. The Byakugan was also one of the strongest investigative tools, and Shin's eyes were who knows how many times more powerful than the Byakugan. Activating his 9-tomo Rinne Tensigen, a radius of dozens of kilometers was within Shin's scope. I hope this isn't a dangerous world. I was a bit reckless when I traveled here. Good thing I still have a trump card. Shin thought of his divine replication card.
The divine replication card could copy anything. Looks like I've been discovered. Shin's expression turned slightly peculiar.
He saw a group of people rushing towards him.
As for their strength, Shin didn't know. I'll make contact. Hopefully, I can get some information about this world.
He didn't move, just waited for them to arrive.
Not long after, Shin was surrounded by a group of women.
And looking at their attire, it was quite revealing.
Are women here really that tall?
Shin noticed that these women's heights were somewhat scary.
Many were even taller than him.
Shin's height was considered short here.
You're a man? Why are you on Amazon Lily? An old woman questioned Shin. Amazon Lily?
Hearing this name, and then looking at the group of women around him, Shin roughly guessed which world this was. It should be Amazon Lily from One Piece, also known as the Isle of Women, because only women lived here, the female warriors of the Kuja tribe.
Good.
If this was really the world of One Piece, then the danger level wasn't high.
Shin's strength could even be said to be invincible. Everyone in this world combined couldn't defeat him. A single infinite Tsukuyomi could destroy the world. Are you Elder Nyan?
Shin looked at the little old woman and asked her.
Seize this man. Dead or alive? Elder Nyan said to the Kuja warriors around her. I think it's better to sit down and talk peacefully. Where is your empress, Hancock?
Seeing them about to act, Shin snorted lightly. A horrifying aura erupted from his body, crushing everyone.
Boom! Conqueror's Haki. Elder Nyan's forehead was covered in cold sweat.
This young-looking man was definitely a terrifyingly strong powerhouse.
It's confirmed.
This is really the world of One Piece. Shin heard the term Conqueror's Haki and was completely certain.
This isn't Conqueror's Haki, Shin said calmly to Elder Nyan.
This was just pure aura pressure. But the pressure was too strong, so Elder Nyan mistook it for Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki was the rarest of the three types of Haki. Without acting, it could intimidate enemies, making weaker people faint directly. It represented a king's disposition, and Conqueror's Haki was innate. It couldn't be learned through training. After retracting his aura, Elder Nyan didn't let the Kuja warriors attack again.
Though Amazon Lily had a prohibition against men stepping on the island, and any man found had to be eliminated. But the man who had just stepped onto Amazon Lily was too strong. Elder Nyan had no choice.
If she didn't know when to back down, it might bring disaster to Amazon Lily.
Where is your empress, Hancock?
I want to see her, Shin said to Elder Nyan.
What empress? When did Hancock become the empress? Do you know Hancock?
Elder Nyan looked at Shin, bewildered, which also made Shin pause.
Don't tell me Hancock hasn't become the empress yet? It seems the timeline isn't at the start of the story. What year is it now? Shin asked Elder Nyan.
Though she didn't know why he would ask such a question that everyone knew, Elder Nyan still answered Shin truthfully.
It is currently the year 1500 of the Sea Circle calendar. The year 1500 of the Sea Circle calendar? Shin fell into thought upon hearing this answer. He knew a lot about One Piece. He knew Luffy set sail in the year 1520 of the Sea Circle calendar. This meant there were still 20 years until Luffy set sail. Luffy hadn't even been born yet.
Roger was executed in the year 1498 of the Sea Circle calendar.
So it's been 2 years since the start of the Great Pirate Era? Ohara was also destroyed in the year 1500 of the Sea Circle calendar.
Shiki the Golden Lion escaped from prison in the same year. Shin was quite familiar with the timeline of major events in the One Piece world.
You don't mind if I stay here for a while, do you? Shin asked Elder Nyan. Elder Nyan looked up at Shin. Mind? Very much so. Amazon Lily didn't allow men to be here.
But rules were rules. The other party had the strength to break this rule.
Did she dare to mind? I don't mind. But I hope you can leave as soon as possible. Elder Nyan didn't want Shin to stay here for too long. After all, they had their rules. But how did this person get here? And what was the relationship between his appearance and the strange phenomenon? May I ask, was the black hole that appeared in the sky earlier related to you? Elder Nyan asked Shin.
A black hole had appeared in the sky earlier, which was why they had rushed over and then saw Shin.
A black hole in the sky? Shin nodded upon hearing this.
That should be the spatial gate he created when he traveled here. By the way, I hope to learn Haki.
I wonder if that's possible. Shin asked Elder Nyan.
Elder Nyan frowned upon hearing this.
Want to learn Haki?
In the end, Elder Nyan nodded. Befriending this powerhouse was also acceptable. If Amazon Lily really encountered a crisis in the future, perhaps they could find a helper.
All right. I can have someone teach you armament Haki and observation Haki. The Kuja warriors on Amazon Lily basically all mastered armament Haki.
There weren't many who mastered observation Haki, but it wasn't none. Armament Haki was relatively easy to train. As long as one was prepared to endure hardship, they could learn it.
True powerhouses all knew armament Haki. In the New World, the second half of the Grand Line, one couldn't survive without armament Haki.
But in the first half of the Grand Line, those who knew armament Haki and observation Haki were very rare, even rarer than devil fruit users.
Hearing Elder Nyan agree, Shin nodded with satisfaction.
If Amazon Lily encountered any trouble in the future, Shin wouldn't mind helping out. He didn't leave Amazon Lily because Shin wanted to learn more about this world.
After all, watching the anime only gave him a partial understanding.
That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned.
Quick reminder.
What if copy system in Naruto is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author? So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if transmigrated in One Piece and becoming a marine? What if transmigrated as Minato Namikaze? What if transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.